In this video, we're going to take a look at an introduction to circles. Now, the very first thing that you need to be familiar with here for circles is what we call the circumference. I'll just write this at the top here. So the circumference. So the first question here is, what is the circumference and what does it show us, or what does it tell us? Well, the circumference is basically the perimeter of a circle. Okay, so this outside length here, that total length is what we call the circumference. Okay, so like we said, it's just basically the perimeter of a circle. Okay, the perimeter of circle. So I'm not going to go into detail on how we find the circumference of a circle in this video. We're going to take a look at that in the next video. But I just want you to understand that the circumference is this length here on the outside. Okay, so that's the circumference. What we're going to do now is go through each circle here and just label the key parts to each circle. So what I've got here in the middle is my center to this circle. So from the center here, what you can see straight away is I've got this line here. Okay, so let me just scribble that out. It's not very straight here. Let's try again. So from my center here, I've got this line here. Okay, so I won't try and sketch it in. But this line here is special. This is what we call the radius of a circle. This line here is what we call the radius. So the radius must always go from the center to a point on the circumference. Okay, and this line here that goes all the way across, this is what we call the diameter. Okay, so this is what we call the diameter. So the diameter is 2 lots of the radius. Okay, so like you can see, if I was to carry on this line here from the radius, if I was to extend that all the way through, that would also form a diameter. Okay, so that's the key part there for the radius and the diameter. These will be particularly important in the next video when we take a look at finding the area and circumference of a circle. So that's the radius and diameter. Moving on to the next circle now, we've got a few things here that are key. So this line here, this isn't a diameter here. Okay, so the key thing about the diameter is it goes always through the center. Okay, this one here clearly doesn't go through the center. This is my center point here. But this is an important line. This is what we call a chord. Okay, so this line here, this is what we call a chord. And a chord is just basically a line here that goes from 2 points on the circumference, but it doesn't go through the center. Okay, so we just found this line here from 2 points on the circumference. So that's a chord. Now, this part here, let me just shade it in a different color. Let's shade it in orange. So this region here now that's formed, okay, this is what we call a segment. Okay, so this is what we call a segment, this shaded orange part. And before I explain what a segment is, let me just label something else on this circle. And we'll do this in red. This part here on the circumference, again, just shading this in, this is what we call an arc. Okay, so this red bit here is what we call an arc. So an arc is just simply a part of the circumference. So the segment here is the area that's enclosed by a chord. So this line here and an arc. Okay, so this little shaded region here in orange, that's what we call a segment. So like we say, it's just the area that's enclosed by a chord. That's this line here and this arc. Okay, and then if we move on to the final circle here again, let's do this in a different color. So labeling the key things here, well, this region that's formed here, okay, I'm going to do in blue here. This is what we call now a sector. Okay, the part in blue here is what we call a sector. And what I've basically got here is my center point. And what you'll notice here is I've got this radius and this radius. So the plural of radius is radii. So I've got these radii here. So that's a radius. We'll call it R. And this is a radius here. Again, calling that R. So the sector here is the area. So this shaded region here. So that's the area enclosed by 2 radii and the arc. So notice here I've got another arc here. And again, I'll just do it in red just to highlight that this is the arc here. Okay, that's my arc again. And then finally, there's one more thing for us to label here. Let's do it in green. So this line here at the very bottom, okay, this line here, what we call the tangent. Okay, so this is the tangent to a circle. And the tangent to a circle just basically touches the circle at one point only. Okay, and that would form a right angle to the circle there. But you don't need to understand that too much unless you're going to go on to do higher material, when we introduce more detail to that in circle theorems. If you're only doing the foundation, you just need to be able to recognize that this is what we call a tangent to the circle. Okay, so there we have it. So that's everything we need there for our introduction to circles. And that brings us to the end of this video. So we're not going to take a look at any kind of practice questions here. We'll do that in the next video. So in the next video, we're going to take a look at finding the area and circumference of a circle.